Here's a segment from a recent Gun Talk radio episode. You can listen to all the Gun Talk radio podcasts however you tune in, or check out guntalk.com for more. And we are back. It's called Gun Talk because, well, that's all we do around here. We talk about guns. Shooting guns, owning guns, buying guns, getting training with guns, knowing what the laws are about guns. And sometimes that is difficult. Those who say, well, we should have gun laws. We should have some. You guys are against gun laws. There are more than 20,000 gun control laws in the United States. Were you aware of that? More than 20,000 gun control laws in the United States. City, state, local, county, national, of course. As far as I've been able to see, and I've been studying this for about, 50 years, I have never found one that has ever reduced crime. And yet we want more and more and more and more. Perhaps it's not really about trying to reduce crime. And the more you get into it, the more you work with and understand and study and see the actions of the gun ban industry, you realize they don't really care about crime or accidents or anything else. And look, here's the reality of it. It's not that they don't like guns. They don't hate guns. They hate you. They don't hate guns. They hate gun owners. They don't trust you. They don't like you. And honestly, they're willing to do pretty much anything as a way of restricting your rights. Here's a question for you. What's the difference between a right and a privilege? A privilege you have to ask permission to exercise. You have to get permission before you can do a privilege. It's not called the Bill of Privileges. A right, you don't have to ask anybody's permission. And if you have to ask permission, if you have to get permission to exercise it, it's no longer a right. One of the guys who understands this all too well, Clark Aposhian, is a gun lobbyist. He is a firearms instructor. He is a shooter. And a pretty darn good thinker about this. He joins us right now with some news of what's going on, not only in Utah, but nationally. Hey, Clark, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well, Tom, and I know that you are doing well because you sound great.
Okay, so you're the guy, and most people will just go along and get along. And you're the guy who, I'm sorry, you just don't do that.
we do a lot of poking the bears here, yeah.
Yes, you do.
And one of the bears that we poked was the bump stock case.
Well, that's where I was going to go. So, all right. So when the bump stock thing happened last year, you said, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that one." And unlike a lot of people, you said, "But I'm going to go do this legally." So explain what you did and kind of and lead us up to where we are now.
Well, I didn't want to turn in my bump stock because I felt that the way they did this. The ATF and the Trump administration bypassed Congress. They didn't do it right. And we all know that the ATF and its interpretation that said a piece of plastic, that a stock, is not a machine gun. Oh, my gosh, by any stretch of the imagination, it's not a machine gun. But that's what they called it. And they were able to effectively ban the bump stock. So we took them to court.
Right.
So the New Civil Liberties Alliance out of D.C., and we took them to court, and we haven't actually lost yet. So I want to make sure to understand that. We haven't actually lost. My bump stock is not destroyed. I don't have possession of it right now, but I think I'm the last person in America to have a non-destroyed bump stock. It's just the ATF has it on a shelf for me waiting the outcome. So what happened is I'm in the 10th Circuit out here in Utah. And we got it all the way up to a 3-judge panel of the 10th Circuit, and it was divided 1-2. So then we thought, well, our next step is SCOTUS, the Supreme Court. And however, then last year, the full 10th Circuit, en banc, 11 justices decided, hey, you know what? They voted, we want to hear this case. This has some big ramifications, much, much bigger than bump stocks, if you will.
Right.
And which is why I was in this. I could honestly care less about a bump stock, but we're using this as a vehicle to address government overreach, especially with the ATF.
Well,
and its interpretations.
Stop right there for a second, because what we're trying to say is, look, you can't have, and we get into the whole Chevron defense, and you go down a rat hole on that deal, but basically what you're saying is the agency cannot make law by itself. This is something that is Congress decides what a machine gun is or what can be banned, and you can't just give this to an agency and let them run willy-nilly and do this. Is that a fair representation of what we're talking about here?
That's perfect. You said it much better than me. Yes, that's exactly right. And yeah, we get into the Chevron defense and the rule of lenity and so on and so forth, but basically there are rules that administrative agencies must follow when it comes to interpreting rules that must follow the law. So anyway, the full 10th Circuit, 11 justices said, you know what, we want to hear this case. We want it argued in front of us. So last week it came up and they said, you know what, let's take another vote, 6-5 against. 6-5 against hearing the case. So we didn't lose. We just lost the ability for them to even hear it. But the bigger thing is this. So they wrote a 2-page decision saying why they aren't going to hear it. The dissent, the 5 justices in dissent wrote a 45-page decision as to what, and it was fantastic. I mean, they literally referenced Lord Voldemort from the Harry Potter things referring to some of these. They literally did that in referencing some of these justices that were in the majority. But interesting to find out, we'll get very disillusioned, and you would think that justices should be above and not be politicized. And, well, every single one of the justices that voted against us was either a Clinton or an Obama appointee. Every single one of them.
Yeah, really surprised. I'm shocked, not.
Well, Tom, you yourself have said for years and years, it ain't about the presidency, it's about the justices, and you couldn't be more right.
So, but having said that, some people would say, oh, gee, you guys lost, too bad. And actually, they didn't vote or take a position against your case. They just said, we're not going to hear it. But you already had the decision en banc, in the panel. But this still leaves you the possibility, which is where you wanted to go in the first place, was to go to the United States Supreme Court.
We are told that as far as the SCOTUS goes, we are in the top 10 for next year to be heard in the United States Supreme Court. It's like, I mean, that's not a guarantee, but it's of all the thousands of cases that are positioned to try to get for the Supreme Court, we're in the top 10.
And I think that's because this is not really, honestly, about bump stocks. This is about what agencies can or cannot do, or what they're doing and shouldn't be able to do, and perhaps give the Supreme Court a chance to go back and look at the Chevron case and look at the power that they have ceded to agencies to make law to put you in prison for 20 years when there's actually no law. They just said, we do this interpretation. That thing we told you was legal. And here's the thing. I want people to understand. In this case, they said, yeah, I know 3 years ago we said that was perfectly legal, but now you can go to federal prison for doing that thing that we told you was legal. I'm sorry, and no one passed a law changing the law on the thing. No, and you're right. And the mental gymnastics they have to go through to take a piece of plastic and say, this is a machine gun. I'm literally saying they said it is a machine gun. Right. There's no firearm attached to it. It is a piece of plastic. Okay, so what's the timeline? You have to appeal this now to the Supreme Court. What are we looking at?
I'm hoping that, well, my attorneys are so on top of this thing. They are fantastic. So if you have some extra spending money, throw it to the New Civil Liberties Alliance, NCLA, out of D.C., because they could really use the help. We could all really use the help. These things do not come cheap. And this is much bigger than bump stocks, folks. Bump stocks are just a vehicle.
I just looked it up. NCLA legal. NCLA legal. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So they're going to be they're going to do all their magic and try and get this before the Supreme Court. And, that part goes over my head. I don't know what they have to do all that. But
okay. We're talking with Clark Aposhian. Clark, I'm going to get you a hold. I want to come back because Utah just passed constitutional carry. There seems to be some real confusion of what that's going to mean, what the restrictions are, and can you even carry a gun on you with a round in the chamber? This is like Bizarro World. We're talking with Clark Aposhian. We'll be right back.